Thank you, my dear. My name is Colonel Frank H.W. Miller, and I am most thankful to be addressing you today. I want to tell you about something that happened to me a few weeks ago. I would ask, though, that you don't tell anyone about what I'm about to say, as even just starting to describe it now makes me feel rather silly. My wife, Mrs. Miller, and I had been invited to supper at Marjorie Edgerton's exquisite little 7-bedroomed house up on the hill, not far from Bluebell Wood. We were tremendously looking forward to this auspicious occasion. Her vol au vents are most tempting, and her expertise at baking chocolate roulade is second to none. Also, 4 of the other 8 guests she'd invited had been chums of ours for many years. This was our 3rd visit to Miss Edgerton's home, and before we went, I had a problem that caused me great anxiety. What clothing should I wear? Now, I have heard from close friends that in most homes it is the lady of the house who, shall I use a strong word, dithers about what to wear on the day of a special occasion. However, in the Miller house, Mrs. Miller is always immaculate in appearance, with classic styling due in part, I suspect, to her superb bone structure and excellent choice of colours that complement each other. I, however, always seem to wear apparel that seems slightly uncongenial to the event that we are attending. I know this because Mrs. Miller generally mentions this afterwards, though not with audible words. She does something with her eyes that I think might be a slight admonishment to my fashion sense, though I'm not totally sure. Anyway, on with the story. Whilst taking a leisurely bath on the morning of Miss Edgerton's supper, I came up with a cunning idea. It was most definitely a eureka moment, like that fine fellow Archimedes had had around 2,200 years ago. I decided to wear 2 sets of clothing at the same time. The outer set would be formal, with a bow tie and cufflinks, and the inner set would be slightly more casual. If the attire of the other guests was formal, then I would keep the outer set on. But if they were dressed more casually, I would quickly excuse myself and go to the ground floor bathroom and take off the outer layer and return looking more casual. No one would notice this change in appearance, as I am generally a quiet chap, and indeed, just like myself, most people were more concerned with Miss Edgerton's vol au vents and chocolate roulade anyway. Oh, how I congratulated myself on the creativity I had thought about earlier in the day when we arrived. In my bow tie, I did look different to the other guests, so I excused myself and went and took off the surplus layer of fabric. And it didn't take me long to do all of this either, just like it's not taken me quite too long to do it just now. I returned as silently as possible to the dining table. However, I had totally forgotten about the beloved pet that lives with Miss Edgerton, Patricia the parrot. Oh goodness, what an absolute commotion was caused as I returned as quietly as possible to the dinner table. Mummy, what's that man done? What's that man done? Mummy, mummy! That evening, we left quite early from the supper, And Mrs. Miller did use audible words in a car on the way home. I have decided not to attempt to wear 2 sets of clothing at the same time in the future. Why do I mention all of this to you today? It's simply this. Many of you metaphorically try to wear 2 or more sets of clothing at the same time. It's impossible to wear 2 different fashions at the same time and not to get confused. You can't be saying that you are putting God first and then you are more concerned with your own ideas, your own achievements, and your own dreams. If you say you are a follower of Jesus, then is your character clothed appropriately? Are you wearing the clothing for your inner person that God has given you, or are you wearing a little bit of God's fashion, but mostly your own? To use a famous expression, are you trying to put a foot in both camps, one being the kingdom of God and the other being your own kingdom? Please think seriously about this, as it is very important. I hope to discuss some more important topics with you in the future, but in the meantime, open your life to God and ask him to speak to you. Put God first. It is impossible to mix what the Lord wants and desires for you with your own ideas. Seek God above everything else. Summer is coming. Hopefully life will get back to normal for all of us in the next few weeks. Stay safe and cheerio!